A family moves to a small town in California where they plan on starting a new life while running a long-abandoned funeral home. The locals fear the place, which is suspected to be on haunted ground. The widow Leslie Doyle has just lost her husband and moves with her teenage son Jonathan and her young daughter Jamie to a mortuary in a small town in California that she has bought with the intention of starting a new business, practicing her knowledge as mortician. When they arrive, Leslie realizes that she was lured by the former owner, Elliot, and that the decrepit Fowler brothers' funeral home was completely abandoned and with problem with the septic sewer. While Leslie tries to improve and clean the place and start embalming corpses, Jonathan is informed about the legend of Bobby Fowler, the deformed son of the Fowlers. Meanwhile, a weird substance attacks people, transforming them in zombies. In the small town of Santa Lorena, California, the decrepit, long-abandoned Fowler funeral home has become a local legend. As the story has it, Zeb Fowler bought the land to start up a ranching business, but something killed off all the cattle. To make ends meet, Zeb became the town mortician, and the Fowler house was turned into a funeral home complete with a cemetery for a yard. But the strangest part of the story is the Fowler's son Bobby, whose face was so hideously disfigured it was hidden beneath a burial shroud. At age 8, Bobby mysteriously vanished, and 10 years later his parents were found murdered, their faces smashed in. Locals believe that Bobby is still alive. Today, the Fowler funeral home is the stuff nightmares are made of: backed up sewage pooling in the yard, a house of filth, decay, coffins, embalming equipment, and a strange black fungus growing on everything. And now the Doyle family is moving in. Having recently lost her husband, Leslie Doyle is relocating her 2 children, Jonathan and Jamie, to Santa Lorena so she can become the town's new mortician. But the Doyles have no idea of the horror that they're in for. Soon they'll uncover what happened to the Fowlers, what evil inhabits the grounds of their estate, and what happens to anyone who steps foot there. The Doyle family moves to rural California to start a new life, perhaps a strange choice because their new life takes on the form of running the long-abandoned Fowler brothers' funeral home. The locals fear the place, and there are whispers around town that the land the home lies on is haunted. The Doyle family will soon discover that something lurks beneath the soil, something that raises rotten corpses from their long-forgotten graves and feeds on death itself. After the loss of their father, the Doyle family, Leslie, Jonathan, and Jamie, move to the Fowler mortuary in hope of starting a new life but find it in poor condition. Jonathan goes to the local diner where he meets Cal and his 2 girlfriends, Tina and Sarah. Cal tells Jonathan about the legend of Bobby Fowler, an abused and deformed boy who lived in the mortuary. Jonathan also meets Liz, a local girl, Grady, Liz's best friend, and Rita, Liz's aunt, who employed her to work at the diner. Jonathan, Liz, and Grady become friends quickly. That night, Cal, Sarah, and Tina go to the graveyard outside the mortuary and vandalize it. They then go into one of the crypts, where they are attacked by Bobby Fowler. The next day, Jonathan, Liz, and Grady go back to Jonathan's house, where Grady gives them drugs. Shortly afterwards, Sheriff Howell shows up to welcome Leslie to the town. He informs her about his attempt to stop graveyard babies. He also is looking for Cal, Sarah, and Tina. Sheriff Howell investigates the crypts, where Bobby Fowler infects him. The next day at the diner, Jonathan and Liz are working, when Cal and Sarah arrive messy. Cal has a rage attack and Sarah begins vomiting black ooze. Rita comes in to calm her down but is infected in the process. At the mortuary, Leslie performs her first embalming. While doing so, she makes a mess of the embalming fluids. While going to clean it up, one of the bodies gets up and infects Leslie. Jonathan, Jamie, Liz, and Grady return to Jonathan's house for dinner, where Leslie, now infected with the mysterious ooze, has prepared a sort of ooze soup. The 4 notice a black fungus growing on the wall. Liz pours salt in her soup which makes it bubble and sends Leslie into a rage in which she attacks Jonathan and Jamie. Liz and Grady quickly escape. Shortly afterwards, Jonathan fights off his mother and saves Jamie. The 4 escape outside but are forced to retreat into a crypt, because they are chased there by an infected man. The four make the shocking discovery that Bobby lives in the crypt and dug tunnels under the cemetery. They find Tina, who is still alive, but are attacked by the mother. They find a ladder which leads back into the house, where they barricade themselves. They question Tina and eventually cut her hand to see if her blood has turned into the black ooze, a sign of the infection. Sheriff Howell assaults the house with a shotgun. Tina goes into the kitchen to clean the wound but is infected by contaminated water. Grady accidentally pours salt on her, burning her. The group now knows the weakness of the infected, but their victory is short-lived after they find that Jamie, who Jonathan had left in her room to keep her safe, has been captured. Shortly after entering the tunnels, they see and hear things. A hand suddenly punches through Grady's chest, giving him enough time to say quietly, "Run," before dying. They soon find the source, a well filled with black ooze. Shortly thereafter, Jamie is found, but captured by Bobby Fowler and taken back to the lair, where they confront him by throwing salt in the well. Cal is killed by getting his head blown off by the sheriff, and the other infected are burned with salt. Bobby is sucked in and the three escape the house. The three, happy to escape but still grieving the deaths of Leslie and Grady, are about to leave the house, but Jonathan is pulled underground, and Leslie, alive again, pulls Jamie into the house, and Liz's fate is left untold. In the present, Montgomery thinks he's told the best tale ever, but Sam thinks she can top him. She also reveals she didn't come here for the job and stops him from sending the small coffin of the dead boy into the incinerator. She tells him if he's heard of the babysitter killer. On a dark, stormy night, Sam is at a house where the parents have gone and the kid is upstairs sleeping. A call from the parents informs her that they will be late and that Sam can take whatever they want from the fridge. She goes about cooking a feast for herself. Chopping vegetables, listening to music and dancing about. On the TV there's news about a mental patient who has escaped the asylum and who targets houses with kids. The killer apparently removes kids' teeth and keeps them as trophies and is also a cannibal. Of course, Sam isn't present to hear it because she's dancing in the kitchen. Just then she enters the living room and sees a man sitting on the couch. She goes into the kitchen to grab a knife but the man has already followed her there. She tries to evade him and goes upstairs as the man tries to find the kid. Sam manages to push him off the stairs and then drops the TV on his head. When the parents come back they are shocked to see a body near the staircase. The father props up the TV and then reveals it is not just any man but their babysitter Sam. They wonder what happened to their kid and rush upstairs but can't find him in his room. The smoke alarm goes off in the kitchen and they realize what the woman was actually cooking. It was their son. The parents scream. In the present, Sam reveals she doesn't want to leave anything incomplete. She came to the mortuary to retrieve the boy's teeth because she's quite eager to be called the Tooth Fairy Killer. But now that Montgomery knows the truth she stabs him. Montgomery laughs and Sam's suspicions about his age come true. Montgomery has been alive for many years because he's not full of blood like normal people but full of embalming liquid. He laughs as he explains that she will have to pay for what she did. All of her victims emerge from the books laying around the basement and the Chart children attack Sam and rip her to pieces. One of them is happy to get his tooth back. Montgomery is happy to have transferred his responsibilities elsewhere and thinks he can now finally leave the mortuary. He steps out and explodes. Later, Sam awakens to find herself all out together and filled with embalming fluid. She's now the new mortician. Much later, the small boy who had lost his camera in the first scene is seated in front of her and taking her interview. She's all dressed up and asks him to stay for dinner. Of course, what the poor kid doesn't know is that he is the dinner.